In this video, I will show that Skull and Bones members took control of society by successfully infiltrating the fields of education, money, law, politics, economy, psychology, philanthropy, medicine, religion, and media. Adam Weishaupt would have been proud. Welcome to part 3 in our Skull and Bones trilogy. Go check out parts 1 and 2 if you haven't, or the other videos on the channel about the Bavarian Illuminati and Sabbatean Frankists that are connected to the video you are watching now. In this video, we will be strictly speaking about the scandals and shady dealings of numerous Skull and Bones members, along with examining how numerous bonesmen obtained positions in the society that, while working in unison, allowed them to control the perception of the masses while enriching themselves monetarily and through a concentration of power. Make sure to like, subscribe, and to follow me and the 3 badass broads that I hang out with on the Broadcast podcast. If you don't, you're pretty much telling me you hate cute puppies and worship Satan. Hit the intro.
I got flavor. Motherfucker, I'm ill.
Alright, let's not waste any time and get into the first scandal, which is surrounding the Bank of Credit and Commerce International, or BCCI. With losses occurring in the $15 to $20 billion range, accusations of fraud and laundering drug money, mainly in Florida, started to make headlines in the 1980s pertaining to BCCI. Many prominent names were being connected to the scandal, including President George H.W. Bush. The Bush administration tried to impede any serious investigation. However, a formal investigation of BCCI was launched by Senate Foreign Relations Subcommittee on Terrorism, Narcotics, and International Operations, headed by Massachusetts Senator John Kerry. Kerry was chairman of the Democratic Senate Campaign Committee, which received significant donations from, can you guess where? Bank of Credit and Commerce International. You are correct.
Sick, twisted fuck.
The Kerry-led investigation ended up being a farce. A special counsel to Kerry's subcommittee, Jack Blum, was quoted saying the following.
One of our witnesses, Mr. Blum, who will...
I proposed a serious investigation of BCCI and was brushed aside. A high-level cover-up of everything concerning BCCI was set into place after Customs stumbled across their money laundering operation in Miami and its stolen place. Then, in 2004, the presidential election pitted Democrat nominee John Kerry versus George H.W.'s son, aka Boy Bush, as the incumbent Republican nominee. Yep, 2004 was a bones versus bones presidential race. There was talk of Kerry challenging the results due to his criticism of GOP Secretary of State Ken Blackwell.
His role in the Ohio election, which saw George W. Bush narrowly defeat John Kerry, remains controversial to this day. Blackwell was the target of over a dozen lawsuits over his handling of the 2004 election.
For his dual role in 2004 as President Bush's honorary Ohio campaign co-chairman and the state's top election official. He used the power of his state office to try to intimidate Ohioans and suppress the Democratic vote, Kerry stated in an email. But if the puppet masters have banked on another Boy Bush presidency, which really means another this guy presidency, then it's a good thing his opponent is a fellow bonesman that conceded the election in the morning instead of challenging the results in Ohio. Funny how that works.
I would not give up this fight if there was a chance that we would prevail. But it is now clear that even when all the provisional ballots are counted, which they will be, there won't be enough outstanding votes for us to be able to win Ohio. And therefore, we cannot win this election.
A lazy fuck.
By establishing reading societies and subscription libraries, and taking these under our direction and supplying them through our labors, we may turn the public mind which way we will. Adam Weishaupt. Go watch our video series on the Bavarian Illuminati that led us to the Skull and Bones on this channel. The investigation revealed that many members of the Illuminati were part of the military, state officials, professors, and teachers. This should come as no surprise to viewers of this channel, seeing as we've already mentioned this. Illuminati priests were given the choice of directing one of the following sciences: physics, medicine, mathematics, natural history, politics, the arts, or occult sciences. Keeping that quote I just mentioned by the Bavarian Illuminati founder Adam Weishaupt, let's take a look at how Skull and Bones men did executing Weishaupt's concept after leaving Yale. Bonesmen and their industries. Government and intelligence. Prescott Bush, Skull and Bones, class of 1917. More on him funding Nazis later.
What the hell did you just say?
George H.W. Bush, Skull and Bones class of 1948, CIA director and former president. George W. Bush, Skull and Bones class of 1968, 43rd President of the United States, Governor of Texas. McGeorge Bundy, Skull and Bones class of 1940. He was the 5th National Security Advisor under JFK and Lyndon B. Johnson. William Bundy, Skull and Bones 1939. Longtime CIA analyst, 9th Assistant Secretary of State for East Indian and Pacific Affairs. Which brings us to the father of these Bundy brothers, Harvey Hollister Bundy, Skull and Bones 1909, appointed by Henry L. Stimson as Special Assistant to the Secretary of War during World War II, Boston attorney at Putnam Bell. Henry Stimson, Skull and Bones 1888.
Fucking nerd.
He served as Secretary of War under President William Howard Taft, which is the son of the founder of Skull and Bones, Secretary of State under President Herbert Hoover, and again Secretary of War under President Franklin D. Roosevelt and Harry S. Truman, overseeing American military efforts during World War II.
In a journal entry by Roosevelt's Secretary of War Henry Stimson, dated November 25, 1941, he documented a conversation he had with Roosevelt. The question was, how should we maneuver them into firing the first shot? It was desirable to make sure the Japanese be the ones to do this, so that there should remain no doubt as to who were the aggressors.
Next up, F. Truby Davison, Skull and Bones 1918, Director of Personnel for the CIA, Assistant United States Secretary of War in office July 1926 to March 1933. Next up, brother of F. Truby, Henry Pomeroy Davison Jr., Skull and Bones 1920. We'll come back to him when we take a look at Skull and Bones and their influence on media. The father of the Davison brothers I just mentioned, Henry Pomeroy Davison Sr. Claims exist that he was also a Skull and Bones member, however, finding a definitive year of his membership is difficult. Henry Sr. is known for being a banker and philanthropist. In 1909, he became a senior partner at J.P. Morgan & Company, and in 1910, he was a participant in the secretive meeting on Jekyll Island, Georgia, that laid the foundation for the creation of the Federal Reserve System in 1913. Now that we have mentioned J.P. Morgan, stay tuned for additional money-printing, banking families to be painted into this picture. And now, a word from the best sponsor one can ever have.
Hi, I'm Suze.
I'm Ash.
And I'm Tammy, and together we're The Broadcast.
If you like podcasts and chicks without dicks that chat about government corruption,
the dark sides of Hollywood,
fighting against the woke mob and commies,
and every conspiracy theory we can cook up, you won't be disappointed.
New episodes drop every Sunday night at 7 p.m.
Available on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Now, back to the video.
And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it.
Where were we?
Bitches ain't shit.
William Francis Buckley Jr., Skull and Bones 1944. Beirut CIA station chief from 1984 until his kidnapping and death in 1985. Buckley was also a member of the Knights of Malta. William Bissell, Skull and Bones 1925, whose brother, Richard Bissell, became deputy director of plans for the CIA. Here's an example of his work. In March 1960, President Eisenhower approved a CIA plan to overthrow Castro. This strategy was organized by Richard Bissell. Sidney Gottlieb of the CIA Technical Services was tasked to come up with proposals that would undermine Castro's popularity with the Cuban people. Gottlieb also ran MK-Ultra project from 1953 to 1964. These schemes were rejected, and instead Bissell decided to arrange Castro's assassination. In September 1960, Bissell and Allen W. Dulles, the director of the CIA, started talks with two main figures of the mafia, John Roselli and Sam Giancana. Later, other crime bosses such as Carlos Marcello, Santo Trafficante Jr., and Meyer Lansky became involved in the first plot against Castro. This strategy was managed by Sheffield Edwards. Robert Mahu, a veteran of CIA counter-espionage activities, was instructed to offer the mafia $150,000 to kill Fidel Castro. The advantage of employing the mafia for this work is that it provided the CIA with a credible cover story. The mafia were known to be angry with Castro for closing down their profitable brothels and casinos in Cuba. If the assassins were killed or captured, the media would accept that the Mafia were working alone. The Mafia played along in order to get protection from the FBI.
Sam Giancana was quick to claim that it was he who had elected Kennedy to the White House. While most dispute this, Giancana certainly expected payback.
Giancana can legitimately think that he had done his work and that he had tipped it and that he could expect some result.
Giancana expected the new Kennedy administration to get Bobby off his back. He told an associate,
"Bobby will just be another goddamn lawyer soon. They promised me they'll take care of him."
Next up, Robert Lovett, Skull and Bones, 1980. He was the 4th United States Secretary of Defense, 2nd United States Deputy Secretary of Defense, 15th United States Under-Secretary of State. His father, Robert S. Lovett, was president and chairman of the board of the E.H. Harriman System of Railroads, Union Pacific Railroad, and a director of both the National City Bank of New York and Western Union. Lovett joined his father's banking firm in 1921, later moving to his wife's family's banking firm, Brown Brothers Harriman, where he became a partner in 1926. Next up, John Kerry, Skull and Bones, 1966. 68th United States Secretary of State. First United States Special President Envoy for Climate.
Mr. Secretary, in exchange with Mr. Mills, you just testified under oath that you never owned a private jet. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to enter into the record article here from February 15th of 2023 that the John Kerry family private jet was sold shortly after accusations of climate hypocrisy. Mr. Secretary, do you stand by that testimony that you've never owned or
I personally,
your family? By your family?
Personally, yes. My wife owned a plane and sold the plane.
You flew on that plane?
Not in a number of years, but I have flown on it, sure.
And this article is not then inaccurate, that your family owned a plane, you flew on a plane.
My
Mr.
wife owned
here's
a plane.
Here's the issue.
Yeah.
This isn't some kind of partisan gotcha. When we are asking Americans to make serious sacrifices as we transition for the common good, and your family and or yourself are flying around on private jets, that smacks of hypocrisy. It actually hurts your cause, Mr. Secretary, but I'll move on. I just want to know from a record standpoint.
Afford me the right, at least, to set the record straight here. I do not fly on a private jet. I do not fly. I fly commercially.
Have you flown on a private jet since you've taken this position?
Just let me just finish. I have flown 5 times in the last 2.5 years on Millair, which you also fly on.
Sure.
Or some of you who travel fly on, 5 times. Otherwise, all of my trips are commercial
airlines. Have you flown on a private jet in a personal or official capacity since you've taken this position?
Possibly once.
And of course, 2004 Democrat presidential nominee where he faced off against Republican Boy Bush.
You were both in Skull and Bones, the secret society.
It's so secret we can't talk about it.
What does that mean for America? The conspiracy theorists are going to go wild.
I'm sure they are. I don't know. I haven't seen the web.
Number 322?
First of all, he's not the nominee. And, look, I look forward...
Are you prepared to lose?
No, I'm not going to lose.
You both were members of Skull and Bones, a secret society at Yale. What does that tell us?
Not much, because it's a secret.
All right, let's go.
John M. Walker Jr., Skull and Bones, 1962. Senior Judge of the United States Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit, assumed office September 30th, 2006. Judge of the United States Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit, appointed by George H.W. Bush. Judge of the United States Court for the Southern District of New York, appointed by Ronald Reagan. In 1981, Walker became Assistant Secretary of the Treasury, responsible for policy and law enforcement, regulatory and trade matters, and with oversight of the Customs Service, Secret Service, Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, and the Office of Foreign Assets Control. As Assistant Secretary, he helped establish the Iran United States Claims Tribunal and served as a U.S. representative to Interpol. His father was John M. Walker Sr., Skull and Bones, 1931, and that now brings us to the media, education, and business category of bonesmen. Hopefully you, the viewer, has realized that these bonesmen were the ones involved in the establishing of the military-industrial complex, which I consider the CIA and other intelligence agencies a part of.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The next few individuals that we're going to examine provide Skull and Bones the ability to control the media and show the power of the money-printing banking families that were on their side. John M. Walker Sr., Skull and Bones 1931, was an American physician and investment banker. Walker's older sister, Dorothy, married President Bush's father, Senator Prescott Bush. Henry Luce, or Luce, was born in China and arrived in the US at the age of 15, was co-founder of Time Inc., which is the publisher of Time, Life, Fortune, and Sports Illustrated magazines. It is reported that Henry and his magazine empire was a devoted participant of Operation Mockingbird.
Do you have any people being paid by the CIA who are contributing to a major circulation American journal?
We do have people who submit pieces to American journals.
Do you have any people paid by the CIA who are working for television networks?
This, I think, gets into the kind of getting into the details, Mr. Chairman, that I'd like to get into in executive session.
Gotcha, bitch!
Don't forget, the already mentioned bonesman, Henry Pomeroy Davison Jr., Skull and Bones 1920, worked as a director of Time magazine. William F. Buckley Jr., Skull and Bones 1950, was founder of the National Review magazine and a prominent conservative commentator and author. He worked for 2 years in the CIA. From 1966 to 1999, Buckley hosted 1,429 episodes of the public affairs television show Firing Line. Just when you thought the power capabilities of the Skull and Bones was impressive, here comes the section of my script that exhibits the Order's ties to the banking families who many think rule the world today. Rothschild, Rockefeller, and Morgan connections. Starting with J. Richardson Dilworth, Skull and Bones 1938, he was a longtime manager of the Rockefeller fortune. Next up, Harold Stanley, Skull and Bones 1908, joined Morgan's Guaranty Trust banking firm in 1915 and eventually became a partner in the merged Morgan Stanley & Company. W. Averill Harriman, Skull and Bones 1913, was a board member of Guaranty Trust, more on him later. H.P. Whitney, Skull and Bones 1894, and his father, W.C. Whitney, Skull and Bones 1863, were both directors of Morgan's Guaranty Trust. Amory Howe Bradford, Skull and Bones 1943, married Carol Warburg Rothschild in 1941 and soon became general manager of the New York Times. Breaking news, shout out to Fun Acceptable Views, aka Ash from the Broadcast Podcast, for finding me a picture of Amory Bradford Howe. Here it is. Thanks, girl. Go follow her and everybody else on the Broadcast Podcast. Now back to the video. The Warburgs control Deutsche Bank and BNP. Paul Wahlberg was a Federal Reserve founder as well. We shall have world government whether or not we'd like it. The only question is whether world government will be achieved by conquest or consent. Paul Wahlberg.
Shut up, bitch!
Nothing to see there. Moving along. Percy A. Rockefeller, Skull and Bones 1900. He was a businessman and philanthropist. A Rockefeller series will be made on this channel at some point, so we'll circle back to that family. Here's a quick story in relation to the most recently mentioned characters.
If your dog is lost, you don't look for an hour and then call it quits. You get your ass out there and you find that fucking dog.
Jacob Schiff, who was a financier of the Bolshevik Revolution. The top guy at Cohn, Loeb & Co. And also the Schiffs, you might not know, shared a house with the Rothschilds in Frankfurt, Germany during the later half of the 18th century, which means they also must have met this guy. So anyways, Jacob Schiff financed the purchase of the Union Pacific Railroad for railroad tycoon Edward H. Harriman. Edward Harriman's control over transport costs aided John D. Rockefeller in monopolizing the petroleum industry in the late 1800s. Rockefeller had an exclusive deal with Harriman to transport his petroleum that would drive Rockefeller's competitors out of business and force them to sell their business to Rockefeller. Edward Harriman is the father of the previously mentioned William Averell Harriman, Skull and Bones, 1913. During the 1930s, W. Averell Harriman's banking firm named W.A. Harriman and Company merged with the private international banking firm of Brown Brothers, creating Brown Brothers Harriman and Company. A longtime partner of Brown Brothers Harriman and Company was Prescott Bush. The Harrimans were considered mentors to the Bush family. Averell Harriman also held ownership in UBC. UBC stands for United Banking Corporation, and here's an explanation of Prescott Bush, UBC, and quite the scandal.
One other treasonous organization worth mentioning is the Union Banking Corporation of New York City. Not only did it finance numerous aspects of Hitler's rise to power, along with actual materials during the war, it was also a Nazi money laundering bank, which was eventually exposed for having millions of dollars of Nazi money in its vaults. The Union Banking Corporation of New York was eventually seized for violations of the Trading with the Enemy Act. Guess who the director and vice president of the Union Bank was? Prescott Bush, our current president's grandfather, and of course our former president's father. Keep that in mind when considering the moral and political dispositions of the Bush family.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to wrap it up here.
Booyakasha!
We didn't even get a chance to examine in detail Skull and Bones' influence on education, medicine, and other facets of our life, but the connections are there. Yale taking in Project Paperclip participants was also overlooked, but I am happy we did get a chance to connect Sabbatean Frankists to the Bavarian Illuminati to the Skull and Bones and their influence on the shady CIA, military-industrial complex, and how this all connects to the Rothschilds, Morgans, Rockefellers, and other notorious banking families. Throughout this series, numerous characters you met were also members of the organization that is up next to be featured on the channel. Not fully a secret society, I would call the Council on Foreign Relations a semi-secret organization with an even wider reach and more influence on society and events of planet's Earth than Skull and Bones. Please like, share, subscribe, follow, and all that good stuff. I'll do the same for the Broadcast podcast, where you can find me hanging out and chatting with 3 based badass broads. See you all next on part 1 of the Council on Foreign Relations. Until then, like a fat kid in dodgeball, I'm out. Hit the outro.
Motherfucker, I'm ill.